All right, this is gonna be a fun one. Every now and then, I just enjoy sitting down and having these conversations. But with this being the 50th year of hip hop, I really tried to make it my business to get as many of the people I look up to and shape my entire childhood.
It's all cap. Go ahead, continue. Continue with your cap, Meatball. Go ahead, continue with your cap, Meatball. Go ahead, Meatball. You don't know a single Serch lyric. You don't know a single third base lyric. This is cap. Meatball, just do your thing, Meatball. Go ahead.
As you can see, we're starting out the right way. Not only am I getting a chance to, I don't even want to say interview, because I'm getting a chance to just converse with my friend who just happens to be a hip hop icon during these 50 years of hip hop. Please, and I don't know, Serch, I'm gonna tell you, I don't even know how to introduce you.
Your friend,
MC.
Your friend MC Serch. Your friend Michael Barron from Far Rockaway, Queens. How's about that, Prez?
Can we just leave it there?
Yeah, let's just leave it there. How are you, sir? It's good to see you.
My brother.
It's good to see you smiling.
Please welcome my brother, MC Serch.
There it is.
Serch,
that's all the lyrics he knows, ladies and gentlemen. All he knows is that part from Gasface when Don Newkirk, may rest in peace, said, "Everybody, MC Serch." This dude is not a fan of my music. He's a fan of me. Difference. I'm a human being that he loves, but he knows lyrics from third base. Let's just keep it a beans.
I'm gonna tell you something, Serch. You're so off on that. You're so off. And here's the crazy part. Here's the crazy part. Serch, Michael Barron is a great guy, but hip hop, and there's no way of getting around that. You're so freaking hip. But here's what's dope about you, Serch, that I really want to dive deep in. Hip hop is this much. Like you being the artist is this much in terms of your story. You have done so much behind the scenes. You've done so much for the culture as an executive. It's incredible. So I'm looking forward to this, kid.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. And you know, I don't do a lot of these anymore. I'm really selective about sharing my story because, you know, the truth of the matter is, and again, just keeping it where it is, you know, in this day and time, you give interviews that are now content that people now own for the rest of their lives. So I don't do this very often. I don't really want people owning my story. But in this case, I will certainly make an exception because I love you. You came into my life not only at a time where I was doing things as an executive, but you came into my life when I really needed guidance and brought me aboard PMI in the last years. And I really needed not only a friend, but I needed a job. I'll just keep it 100. Like, you know, I was really lost. And I'll never forget, you were like, "Yo, Serch, just pay your way and we're good." And I did not do that. And we were still good. And I loved building Global Spin. I loved building DJ Khan. And I just appreciate you. So I figure if anybody's going to own my content, why not you?
Appreciate that, Serch. I do. You know, it's interesting, and I understand where those sentiments come from. We can touch on that a little bit later. But it's so great because this content, right? Serch, you and I both, we're at an age where we have seen so many of our friends. They're leaving here. We've seen so many people we've come up with, so many people we have broke bread with, both figuratively and literally. And they're gone. So to be able to chronicle these stories and have it in the person's own words, that to me is what's most important. Unfiltered, told from, you know, because each of us, we could each see a car accident And depending on what side of the street you're standing, you might see something totally different. So having it come from your vantage point, that's why I enjoy doing what I'm doing. And, I know you are one of your greatest gifts is being a storyteller. So this is going to be so fun because it gives a chance for the audience to not only hear your story, but to hear so many stories of people you've been around, places you've been, things you've done. So it's just going to be a fun combo, kid.
Absolutely, no question. Let's get it.
Okay. Everybody knows you're from Far Rockaway, Queens.
All day. It's on the surfboard behind me. It's on the A train sign. Wait, I can't do that thing with the hand. Oh, there it is. Yeah, right there. Anyway.
How does a kid from Far Rockaway get into hip hop? Like, it's not like back in the 80s. And like I know, you're from New York, I'm from New York. Queens was the forgotten borough. We know Staten Island was the forgotten borough. Run DMC, God bless them, NC Shan, all of them came from Queens. But for the most part, Queens was the forgotten borough. How'd you even find your way into the hip hop thing?
I would say that Queens wasn't the forgotten borough. Far Rockaway was the forgotten part of Queens. Early on, very early in those days, going, on the A train from Far Rockaway, going to Rockaway Boulevard, going to the city. There was always, from 1979 to like 1982, 83, there was always park jams. You'd always hear about, parties, Hollis Park. You'd hear about parties in Reese Park, the Albino Twins, Grandmaster Reggie Reg and the Playboy Club, the Players Club, excuse me. Even Cupmaster DC would come and spend a lot of time in Rockaway and Long Beach. There was always these park jams, right? So the guys I grew up with in Redfern projects were always some way, shape, or form connected to those parties, right? But the beautiful part about Far Rockaway was that if you took the Long Island Railroad from Far Rockaway, which was in Inwood, the Long Island Railroad would take you to Atlantic Avenue, would take you into Brooklyn. So you could go to Vandermeer Projects, you could go to LG, also known as Lafayette Gardens, you could go, and there were park jams all the time. Divine Sounds. Those were some of my earliest memories, Prospect Park. So there were always, when we were 12, 13, 14, there were always parties that your mother would let you go to because you'd say, oh, it's at the park. I'm going to the park. So they would think, oh, you're going to the, but then you're going to the park jam. So you'd always, be able to like, it's 12, 13, you're seeing all this stuff. It wasn't until I got to high school that, I started to see the people that I was listening to on these cassette tapes in real life.
What high school we talking?
High School Music and Art on 135th and Convent in Harlem. So New York City, like a lot of cities around the country, has what we call public privates, public schools that you have to try out to get into. In Brooklyn, you had, Brooklyn Tech. You had, you had Bronx School of Science. In New York, we had two big schools in the 80s. It was Fame, Performing Arts, and Music and Art. Performing Arts being the big one because it had the movie Fame,
Yep.
And then Music and Art was the one they called the Castle on the Hill, 135th and Convent. So that was the school I went to. And my favorite group when I was coming up in 79, 80, there was these cassette tapes of this group called the Kango Crew. Kango Crew is dope because they always did all these funny things about girls. Indian girl, hillbilly girl. And then they had this one skit, Lottie Dottie, and you could barely hear it. It all sounded like the teacher from Peanuts, like all the tapes were like, but you'd play it 100 times until you could hear little things, but we were getting like 5th, 6th generation tapes from these park jams. But one of my favorite skits was Hillbilly Girl, an Indian girl by this group, the Kango Crew, and it was Lance Romance, Omega, Dana, Dane, and Ricky D. And when I went to high school, there they were, like in the lunchroom doing Hillbilly Girl, doing Indian Girl, doing Lottie Dottie. And Dana Dane became Dana Dane, and Ricky D became Slick Rick. And Lottie Dottie went from a little skit we listened to, when somebody banging on the table, to Lottie Dottie. Like, it became biggest record, easily one of the biggest records in the history of the culture. So that's when I was like, oh, they're doing it, I can do it. And I was originally told, no, you can't do it. Like, this is not for you. You can be a spectator, but you can't be a participator because you're white. But then I saw my man Blake, Vanilla B, aka Keo. He was rhyming, and he was way cooler than I was because he was from downtown Brooklyn. So he had the Kango, furry Kango with the Latigra and the permanent crease sleeves. And I had a Jew fro, and I had some whack ass clothes on because my parents were broke. And I had favor instead of Air Force Ones. I had favors on. And I didn't feel cool enough to be in these ciphers, to be in these. So I would just write at home every day. I'd write rhymes, which to me was just an extension of poetry, which I was doing anyway. And that was really my initial introduction to the culture, was those tapes and b-boying and, DJing and graffiti and trying to find my way. So, around 79, 80 was, really my indoctrination, not just into the music that I was listening to with my boys, but now the culture of hip hop, seeing Fable and Wiggles and Mr. Freeze and Rock Steady Crew on 96th Street Park, and like crazy, it's crazy. And then all of these things became culturally significant. Like, Ricky D, who is my high school classmate, is now Slick Rick. And my man West from FC is now West, with a painting hanging in the Louvre and art galleries downtown. And Keith becomes Keith Haring. And, it was insanity. Like, it was this explosion of culture, and it made you really realize that anything was possible. So instead of going to college, I went to the streets and made it a commitment of mine that I wasn't going to sell shoes for the rest of my life. I wasn't going to be delivering pizza and chicken. I was going to do this, or I was going to die trying. And I got lucky and, had a couple of really amazing moments on that way up, and, signed to Def Jam, and, 35 years later, but you said something really important, and I want to just clarify. You said hip hop is only this part of my story. It's incorrect. Hip hop is this part of my story. It's all of this.
The artist, the artistry.
Muhammad Ali. Damn. Can't just hold on. Ali just hit the floor, ladies and gentlemen. He's down for the count, ladies and gentlemen. He went all the way down the stairs. He's a TKO. The glove is a TKO right now. Anyway, so
no, hold on. I want to clarify that.
No. You meant the music part, and no, in music part, but that's still not totally accurate, because I owe the culture everything. It's not just the small part of my career that was a music career. It was everything, because the indoctrination of the culture from a marketing perspective, a promotion perspective, an engagement perspective. Again, words I didn't even understand. I was just doing them by osmosis. I was doing them because I had no choice. I did radio promotion because the guy who did radio promotion at Def Jam, Wes Johnson, may he rest in peace, said, yo, I ain't bringing no crackers to black radio unless you know these motherfuckers forward and backward. And he didn't use that word. He used the N-word. He said, if I'm bringing you crackers to mine, y'all better know them frontwards and backwards. And he gave me an R&R and a Billboard. He's like, yo, go study. You're going on the road in 6 weeks. I'm not taking. So I had no choice. I really had no choice. If I was going to have any success, A, I had to prove that I respected the culture, regardless if I was making records or not. But B, I had to respect the people that were going to give me the lane in the first place to allow me to have a career. because the Beastie Boys, they didn't really help much. You know, as much as we want to give love to the Beastie Boys, and I'm the first one to say, yes, we should give them love. There are plenty of videos. Please, I'm begging y'all, go to YouTube. See what LL was saying about the Beastie Boys in '87 about touring and what they did and how it was divisive. They had giant penises on stage, pouring beer on women, and they made it harder, not only for white groups, for rap groups to tour in arenas. LL, Chuck, they were vocal about how fucked up the Beastie Boys were. So now here we come, we're culturally rhyming, like in the street rhyming. We're not Brass Monkey, fight for your right to party. We're stepping to the AM, gas face, Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, environment, like we going in. And we had to show respect, show appreciation. And it wasn't just by saying thank you. We had to understand these people. We had to understand these human beings that were going to bump a Black artist off their playlist for us. And I didn't take that lightly, not one day. I was very cognizant that if I was going to be on the urban chart as a rap artist, that I was taking the place of a Black artist. Period. There was no getting around that. There wasn't, oh, well, you're dope. And no, fuck that. There was a Alexander O'Neal record that was going to get bumped. There was a Freddie Jackson record that was going to get bumped. There was a Houdini record that was going to get bumped. There was 1,000 Black, Luther, somebody was getting bumped who was darker than this for my record on their chart. So the only way to really show my appreciation is to tell Helen Little, I know your history. To tell, you know, Mr. Simpson, I knew his history. To tell Steve Hegwood, I knew his history. To tell Vinnie Brown, Tony Gray, and these are all program directors from the late 80s, early 90s, who were the gatekeepers at some of the biggest urban mainstream stations. Because back then there was no Hot 97, there was no Power 106, it was BLS, it was KISS, it was Black radio. And what does that mean? It's R&B. That's what it meant, period. Rhythm and blues. I'll never forget, I accidentally walked into a meeting with Tony Gray, and he had just finished listening to Public Enemy, Fight the Power. And he said, I will never play that ghetto trash on my station.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
1989, the number, another summer, sound of the funky drummer, music hitting your heart because I know you got soul, brothers and sisters. Where is there ghetto trash anywhere in that record? Anyway, but that was the inflection, that was the way people perceived us, that was the way we were seen. And if you weren't Houdini and singing, friends, how many of us had, and you didn't have shiny suits, then you were ghetto trash.
Yeah, let me ask you something, Serch.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I know you personally, and one of the things that I respect wholeheartedly about you is you are who you are. You clearly you are part of hip hop. Hip hop is all of you. But you're Jewish and you're proud. Make no mistakes about it. You and I can speak offline, and I'm going to hear about Hashem. I'm going to hear about the Most High. You're very proud of your heritage, but you have thrived in Black culture. Have you always been in your heart part of the Black culture, even before you came into hip hop? Have you always been attracted to the culture itself? And I'm not speaking.
No. So no, it's a great question because I don't think I've ever talked about this in public. Maybe I have once or twice. I've never been with a white woman.
Wow.
I've never dated a white woman. I never kissed. The only white girl that ever kissed my lips was my mother and my sister, and that was it. In third grade, I had a crush on this girl, Vanessa, dark skin, sat next to me. I used to try to feel up her leg under the fucking desk. Like I've been, but also, and in all fairness, my mother and father, may they rest in peace, were very, very involved in all things culture and all things politics and all things that were positive. So my mother worked with Martin Luther King in '63, bringing buses from the north to Selma. I remember Richie Havens playing guitar in my house. I remember Carlos Santana and, Phil Oakes and, having jam sessions in my house while they were talking about politics for New York. Bella Abzug, who's a well-known Queensboro president and politically involved. There were always Black people, Puerto Rican people, white people, Jewish people, Catholic people, Muslim people. My house was the United Nations because my mother taught us to see good, always try to find good. That worked for me for a period of time until I got into the streets, and then there was no good. I mean, it is what it is. Because then I saw the other side. I saw the way the police treated my friends. I saw the way there was brutality. Yusuf Hawkins happened. So it wasn't that. And the Jewish part of me was always about philosophy. It wasn't about religion as much as it was philosophy. And the philosophy is, if we're the chosen people, then you have to choose right. And you have to choose to allow people to be on your level. There is no, we're the chosen people, so we're greater than, no. Being chosen means to teach and to educate and to listen and to be a part of a greater, one thing you learn in Judaism is that the more you learn about the Torah and the more you learn about Judaism, the smaller you become. You become a grain of sand. So for me, it was always about understanding, loving all people. But it got to a point where I wasn't even a practicing Jew for a long time because my rabbi said something so racist to me that I was going to knock him out. So I not only abandoned Judaism, but I accepted Islam. I accepted the 5% Nation of Islam. I accepted any other religion other than Judaism because I saw that this was the only country in the world where Jews felt comfortable hiding behind their whiteness. And that didn't sit well with me. When Mordechai Levy tried to kill Chuck D in 1989 with a sniper rifle, I was standing in front of 298 Elizabeth Street, like blocking the entrance. Like, let the bullet come through me. You know what I mean? Like, fuck you. Like, he rolled up on me, called me a wicked Jew because I believed in, it's so funny. The two people that ever called me a wicked Jew, Mordechai Levy, yeah. He was the Mordechai Levy, I'll try to explain this, and it's not accurate, so I hope people understand this, but the JDL, the Jewish Defense League at the time, they are to Judaism what the KKK is to Christianity. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're what jihad is to Islam. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very fundamental part of this section of people that believe that they have to protect Jewish lives at all costs. Very similar to what the KKK believes. Very, any right-wing organization. And he rolled up on me with 3 people and called me a wicked Jew because I supported Chuck D. I was like, yo, let me tell y'all something. Chuck D never called me a wigger. Chuck D never called me a kike. Chuck D never called me a schwarzer. You did. My own people called me that. So fuck you. And if you're going to try to take him out, you might as well try to take me out. And that's why on Gas Face, a record you like but don't know any of the lyrics to, Black Hat is bad luck. Bad guys wear black. Must have been a white guy.
Must have been a white guy that started,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
that.
yo, and I know you know the lyrics. I'm only messing with you because I love you. But that was why I said what I said.
Based on that incident? Based on that incident?
No, just based on what I experienced from 14 to 21. Based on what I experienced. Get the gas face for those little white lies. My expression to the mountain is blue eyes. And I'm mountain is blue eyes. Tip on my face and shake my skull cap. Dismiss the myth that evil is not black, opposite spectrum. So I felt like if I'm going to have this platform, then I better use it the right way. It's not just about the fame, the accolades, the touring. Use it as a platform to say, hey, this is what the culture is. This is what it's about. You fast forward and you go to Pop Goes the Weasel. Most people don't realize, like, Pop Goes the Weasel was our ability to go to pop radio and say, hey, why aren't you playing De La? Why aren't you playing Queen Latifah? Why aren't you playing A Tribe Called Quest? Why are you playing Public Enemy? Why aren't you playing MC8? Why aren't you playing MC Breed? There's crazy good records. You don't got to play Hammer and Vanilla Ice 100 times a day. There's 1,000 good records that y'all are missing because the artists are black and they come from independent record labels. Like, what are y'all doing? So that was really, for me, not just about being Jewish, about being human, and that was more important to me than anything else. This culture gave me the ability to be a human being.
That's
to
dope.
live in a space that's human race.
Yeah, that's dope. I mean, so much of that story I never heard before, Serch. You're speaking about your records and you're speaking about your experience as a signed artist. But how did you even get your record deal? Because even as you're talking, I know Beastie Boys preceded you. I can't remember, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. I can't remember any other white Caucasian hip hop artists that were signed and were doing well prior to Third Base. But more important, Third Base came in and it wasn't about skin color. Yes, on the outside you were white, but y'all were all the way hip hop. What Beastie Boys were doing, they were rapping for sure, but it wasn't necessarily done for the black culture. And in their own right, they opened us up to so much of what was going on within white culture, middle America. So I'll give them that for sure. But am I missing anything? Like, were there other groups that I'm just not thinking about that were white that were doing their thing during that time?
So well, I think there's a slight difference. So I'll break it down in two. Were there white groups? Yes. There was our mutual friend, John Schechter, who ran The Source. He was in a group on Select Records called BMOC, Big Men on Campus.
Yep. Forgot about,
Todd Ray, the producer, was in a group called something Boys. They signed to a label. Everlast was signed. He had Forever Everlasting. Dope.
So was Everlast signed at the same time or you, was after you?
Before us.
Okay.
Yeah. Dope new styles of rhyme breaking science. Down with the rhyme syndicate of line. You on a tip like crack of a whip. You know what I'm saying about ships and slips of the lip. He was dope. Everlast was dope. Always been dope. But none of them had like levels of success. Everlast had a level of success because his video was dope and it played forever. And hip hop heads loved that record. But I want to also go back to one thing you said. There was one record, Hold It Now, Hit It, that really banged everywhere. And it made me mad as all get out. Yeah, I'm a chill wheelchair when it's up bill and I'm filling my pocket with $9 bill. 7 out the way. Yo, Red Alert used to bang that in a quarter and I'd be tight. I would be tight. Because they play that 3 times and maybe my little single Hey Boy would get played a half. And I'd be happy. They play Hold It Now, Hit It to death. There was a period of time between Cookie Puss and Hold It Now, Hit It where there was this thing that the Beasties were doing that kind of skirted between the punk rock side of it, where they started, and then the hip hop side. And then, obviously Licensed Sale comes out and it changes the way even hip hop is even perceived.
Correct.
By pop culture and by, the Dick Clarks of the world and all of that. We were obviously not that, I was a kid who was a battle MC. They were not battle MCs. I was a kid who was, dodging bullets at Vandermeer projects. They were obviously not that, even though they were from Brooklyn. I was going to Prospect Park and on Mecca on 125th Street and building with the Gods and the Earths, and they were not doing that. So my perception of the other side of hip hop culture from a density standpoint was very intense. And my rhyme flow, my patterns were all based on different levels of degrees that I was receiving from the people that were around me. And the importance for me in that was I felt not only a credibility that we had that no one else had, but we had a level of real that no one else could take away from us. When Just Ice says, "I know I was there," like in his record with KRS, like, yeah, I was there. Like I was there. I was the Forrest Gump of hip hop. Like I was everywhere. Because I had no choice. Because if I failed, my mother was going to kick me out and send me back to college. And that meant I was going to be a shoe salesman for the rest of my life. And the only time I would see you, Sean Prez, is when you're bringing your beautiful woman to Nordstrom. And I'd say, "Good afternoon, Mr. Prez. Would you like that in a 7 or an 8 in brown or black?" Because that was my path. That was it. Hip hop gave me everything. It gave me not only the music and the touring and the worldly vision at 23 years old, but it allowed me to be able to build things because I was able to connect to an audience. I understood what that meant. I understood what it would take. I didn't have to go get an MBA in marketing to understand that connecting with an audience came down to credibility, believability, and a message that could resonate. And I became really good at that.
Before you go there, how did you get your deal? That's where I'm really trying to go with this conversation, because I know so much before, I know so much after, but I don't know how you were actually discovered. Like, how did you actually get your deal at Def Jam?
So I was, like I said, I was a battle MC. And a friend of mine named Dave Funkenklein, may he rest in peace, was running the rap battle part of the New Music Seminar. New Music Seminar, for those who don't know, is a big music convention that was done in the late 80s in New York. It was run by Tom Silverman, who was the head of Tommy Boy Records. And it was basically a 4-day seminar that talked about the music business, the change in the music business, what's different, and at the end, they had a DJ battle and an MC battle. So Funkenklein asked me to be in the MC battle. And I was killing people. I was murdering people. I mean, I'm just going to keep it a bean. I was just murdering people. And I'm in the, I think, quarterfinals, semifinals. Just about to move on to the final or semifinals, whatever. And I did this rhyme, and I get off stage, and I feel somebody like massaging my shoulders. Now, my mother and father, were there at the show, at this battle at the Hammerstein, and I feel so I figured it was my father. So I put my hand on his hand, and immediately as I felt it, I knew it was my father's hand. And I turn around and it's Russell Simmons, and he says, "Hey, Serch, if anybody asks you, tell them you signed to Def Jam. Don't walk out of here without telling anybody you signed to Def Jam." And that's how we got our deal.
You're telling me Russell Simmons discovered you himself at New Music Seminar?
Yeah, but he didn't really discover me. I knew Russell, and Russell knew me. We knew each other for a long time. I was already signed to Rush Management, and then they let me go. So we had already known each other, and again, to keep it honest, like me and Russell would smoke weed together at the World. Like we would see each other at Save the Robot. Like I'd be with some cute chicks, and Russell be like, yo, Serch, introduce me to your homegirl. Like, like we knew each other from the club scene. And I would always mess with him. And I would always say, yo, you're gonna sign me. I'm gonna be the next group you sign at Def Jam. Like, and he'd be like, fuck out of here, white boy. You know what I mean? Like that, And then I'm battling, and he said, yo, if anybody asks you, tell me sign Def Jam. But even that process took like almost a year and a half. And it's funny because I saw Tom Silverman recently, and when we were going around with our demo the final time before we were making our decision, because we had gotten a record contract from Def Jam. It was not good, but it was the only one we had. So our lawyer at the time was like, look, let's just do one more pass with every label. And if they say no, you take the bird in the hand. And it was a horrible deal. It was they were going to take half our publishing, give us no advance, in perpetuity, meaning forever. The deal, it was just a horrible deal, but it was the only deal we had. And we went to see Tommy Boy, and we went to see Tom Silverman, and Dante Ross at the time, who was a friend at the time, was at Rush and now over there, and brought us for a meeting. And when I told Tom what the deal was, I'll never forget him saying this to me, because the person he mentioned was not only a dear friend, but a mentor. He said, yeah, I can't sign third base for that. I can't sign third base for that. Like, how am I going to tell Stetsasonic and Daddy O that I gave third base more money than them?
This is what Tom told you?
Mm-hmm. I was like,
wow.
All right. I was like, all right, what am I going to say to that?
So you already have a trash deal.
Trash.
You go to Tom.
Trash. And I'm like, we went to everybody. We went to Fred Mineo at Select Records. We went to Aaron Fuchs. We went to every label there was in New York. We went to Profile, saw Corey Robbins and Steve Plotnicki. We went to Jive. We went to every label. No. And the one thing I remember about Tom Silverman is he said, how am I going to justify giving you guys more money than I give Stetsasonic? Because you don't have to tell them what you gave me. I'm not, like, what do you want me? I'm 21 years old, motherfucker. What are you asking me for? Like, I'm a kid, barely 20 years old. What are you asking me for? But anyway, so we wound up taking the deal with Def Jam. And I tell people that, this year we got our rights back to the album, and we're still kind of working out the paperwork and getting our royalties back and getting our rights back.
Stay there for a second, because I want to help people understand this. There's a 35-year rule in hip hop.
No, in music, not just hip hop. Music.
Excuse me, in music.
Music.
Correct.
It's called the copyright law. 35 years, the copyright reverts back to the original recording artist, not the executive producers, not the producers, the artist. Artist retains 100% of their rights of their music after 35 years. All you have to do is submit the paperwork. You have a 2-year window, either 7 years or 2 years to do it. So there's a good chance that when I get it back, it'll be the first time I see a royalty from any of my music in 35 years.
That's insane, Serch.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane, but it's so indicative of so many of the deals that legends have signed, huge artists, because those were the deals that were given out back in them days. It just was what it was. And if we're talking hip hop specifically, we're in the 50th year of hip hop. This is the most streamed genre of music on planet Earth right now. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry. But back in those days, it wasn't even a proven art form. Just to be fair. So it's unfortunate that so many artists like yourself sign these horrendous deals. And here it is, 35 years later, will be the first time. I mean, you clearly said, I didn't even get an advance. But now it's the first time you're getting a royalty check from your music. Insane, bro.
Yeah. And the thing was, we did get a very small advance. We got $15,000.
That was
And
your advance?
yeah, 15,000.
15,000. Was it between the two of you or 15 apiece?
15 apiece.
Okay. So you and Pete got $15,000.
Something like that, yeah. And then obviously when we went gold, then the next deal was a much better deal. We renegotiated our deal, but there were certain things we couldn't get back and certain things we did get back.
You know something? I should have asked you this earlier. Where did you meet Pete? Is this somebody you grew up with? Was this
No.
a group that was kind of just put together by Russell?
No, it was neither. I was already signed to Rush Management as a soloist. I was already signed to Rush as a solo artist. And Russell and Lior were hiring a producer named Sam Sever to produce my demo. And I had done like 4 songs. And they were already shopping the songs. And I get a call that a guy who was at Columbia, or CBS, sorry, had went to A&M. And they were looking to sign a solo artist. It was me, and they were looking at me. They were looking at an artist out of Houston named Raheem, MC Raheem. The night before that meeting, I get a call from Sam. And he says to me, yo, you should come listen to this demo I did last night. Dante called me. He told me his homeboy got stranded in the studio, that Clark Kent was supposed to show up and this one was supposed to show up and none of them showed up. This guy's spending all this money on studio time at Chung King and this, and you should check it out. Now I'd known my old partner because he had a radio show at Columbia. I'd bumped into him in a couple of spots in New York, and he ran with the guy I went to high school with, Vanilla B, and they were going to be in a rap group called the Swervin' Generals, and they were going to sign to a record label. I think Select Records, and the deal never happened. Whatever it was, whatever the reason. So I knew him from around, but I never really saw him like that. He played basketball and we just didn't run the same circle. And so when I got to Sam's crib, there he was, and they played me this track, and the track was incredible. And I started writing to it right there. And then we ran to Chung King and we recorded it. And by the time the guy from A&M came to New York, we had already done 3 songs. And those 3 songs were 100 times better than any demo I had ever created. To this day, I don't even know the name of the songs, the demos that they were shopping. I don't remember none of it. That's how whack those songs were. But I damn sure remember the first time I heard Words of Wisdom and the first time I laid down tracks on them. So this guy comes in, his name is Steve Rabowski, comes in, he sits down, and he says, all right, play me some songs. Because I heard the 3 songs I really like them. And I said, well, I'm gonna play some songs, but just so you know, I'm not a soloist anymore. I'm in a group. And at the time, we were calling a group 3 the hard way. It was me, my old partner, and Sam. So we called the group 3 the hard way. And we're playing these songs, and they're banging. And he goes, I like the songs. Songs are cool. I don't really get the whole group thing, but we'll come back. We'll talk. And he leaves. So we're like, all right, whatever. So we're working. 30 minutes later, Lior's on the phone screaming because Lior Cohen, who was the president of Rush, kicking us out the studio. Get out. You're fired. I quit. Get out. You ruined the entire deal, blah, blah, blah. And Lior actually called my mother and gave her a script to read. And the script went something like this: Michael, why can't you do with this guy you just met what Chuck does with Flavor Flav? And I'm literally like, Mom, you don't know who Flavor Flav is. Why are you letting Lior tell you what to say on the phone? Like, really? So I said, Mom, I tried to explain to her that the music I made is 1,000 times better than what I made as a soloist. And this is my route. And if he wants to kick us out, he'll kick us out. And that was it. So I got the termination agreement from Rush. And the whole reason I did what I did with my old partner was because I was being told, even over that night and consistently, that Rush signed him. So instead of being in competition with him and you on Rush, you should be a group. Found out 30 years later that that was a lie. That everyone
wow.
around me who I trusted, my homeboy Dante, Sam, people that I thought were my friends, lied to me about this dude being signed to Rush. He was never signed to Rush. And the only reason they did that was because they wanted a group. And as disappointed as I am, to be honest with you, I thank them for that, because I know for a fact I wouldn't have had the career I had as a soloist. Well, I don't know, but I know that the success I had, for the limited amount of time we had success until we broke up, I just really can stand by those records. I don't think I really had a clear vision of who I was as an artist until the group. And I wouldn't have been able to really stand on my own as a solo MC after, without the group. And that success, 2 #1 solo records, and then everything that came after it was, signing Nas, signing OC, working with Marc Ecko, all of that stuff was a result of what I did, not only in my group, but what I did after as a solo artist. So it fine-tuned me. It gave me a much more global view. And if I would have signed to A&M, I probably would have not sold any records. I would have been a brick. So I just—
You want to know, Serch, I'm gonna keep it so real with you. I mean, obviously the whole world, if you're into hip hop, you knew you two guys had problems. The group broke up. The third album never came out. But I didn't realize it was that bad until, and I don't even know how many years ago this was, but both of y'all called into Lord Sear.
That's not accurate. That's not true.
Go ahead.
If you want to talk
Correct
about this, we'll talk about it. So Lord Sear had Rakim on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very funny anecdote about Rakim. For those people who know me know that Rakim is my favorite MC of all time, period. There is
Correct.
no higher. The God Body MC is the greatest rapper of all time, period. At one point, while I was signed to Rush, Lior asked me to write a rhyme for Rakim, unbeknownst to Rakim. Something to the effect of Rakim had writer's block. He was working on the second album. He knew me and Eric B were close. And could I write a song? Rakim had no knowledge of this. Eric B had no knowledge of this. This was only something Lior asked me to do. So I did. I wrote a rhyme. When I presented it to Eric, he hung up the phone, called Lior, screamed on him. Who the fuck is this dude to be writing for the greatest MC? Next thing you know, the album's done. Whatever energy happened, the album got done. Fast forward, Lord Sear has Rakim on his show. And Lord Sear says something to the effect of, "Oh, I heard Serch wrote rhymes for you back in the day." Which is not only inaccurate, but just stupid to say. And Rakim said, "Man, if Serch said that, I will fuck him up. Don't, Serch, keep my name out your mouth. Don't ever say, I love you, bro, but don't ever say no shit like that."
Yo, I'm gonna tell you something. You're no stranger to beef whatsoever. I believe you were still in third base when maybe you were going solo, but I think it was you still in third base. Vanilla Ice is blowing up. Why did y'all go after Vanilla Ice?
At the time, he epitomized everything that was wrong with the way the culture was heading. He wasn't authentic. He had no concept of the culture. The slang term that we used was word to the mother.
Yep.
At the end of his record, he says, "Word to your mother." Like he's got a fucking poof on fucking, he's fucking cornball. The only reason he's getting over is because he's cute. Now, the record could have been a hit, could not have been a hit. But there were little things, like he did an interview about the sample. I'll never forget this. He's on MTV, and he's talking about the Under Pressure sample for the why he's getting sampled, sued. And he goes, nah, mine is different. See, there goes doom, 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 doom. And mine goes doom, 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 doom. Like, really? Dick, really? Dick? Like, and he would say things on interviews, and like, he was a clown. And like, what pissed me off was I'm listening to Kane, Light, Paz K, Tribe, Audio 2, Ultra Mag, Public Enemy, all this great hip hop, and it's not playing nan on pop radio. Can you? Daisy Age music ain't playing. Latifah music ain't playing. Tribe ain't playing. How is it possible that the only two rappers in the world playing on pop radio is MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice? How is that even in 1989, 1990? How is that even possible with the amount of great music? Kane, G-Rap,
Rakim.
Love. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I don't even. Let's separate the rest of the world from New York for 1 second. How is Z100 in New York not playing A Tribe Called Quest in 1990? How is Z1? By the way, now, if you look at Z100's playlist, Kendrick Lamar, 21 Savage, Drake.
Yep.
How are you not playing our cultural icons in the period of time when the icons were the icons? But you're stuck on stupid. You're stuck on stupid. Tom Pullman to this day probably apologizes for it. It's probably the greatest misjudgment of music in the history of radio. So I'm not mad at the fact that The Buzz in Pittsburgh or Kiss FM in LA or any of the other big pop station ain't playing it, but damn, really? Z100?
New York?
And we are the cultural shift. You got Fight the Power. You got, I mean, it's phenomenal music. The streets were filled with it. But it's okay. We got Kiss FM, we got BLS, we got Chuck Chill Out, we got Red Alert. It's okay, fine. So we took it upon ourselves to diss him because we knew this would get us over there. And every time we were over there, we'd say, let me ask you a question, Elvis Duran. Let me ask you a question, Cubby. Can you play Tribe Called Quest real quick? Benita Applebum, please play that record. I had Elvis Duran tell me one time in Boston, oh, we can't play that. That's a dirty record. What record's dirty? Benita Applebum? Benita Applebum, you got to put me on as dirty? Where? Like, this is insanity. Like, so that's what we use Pop Goes the Weasel for. We would just be like, yo, let us help our people get their shine. So that's what it was. And that's why we dissed him. And it wasn't until 5 years later where he fell off that all of a sudden he grew dreads and was smoking weed and talking about hip hop's a culture. Fuck out of here.
Yo, have you ever bumped heads with this dude in real life?
Nah.
You and Vanilla Ice never on the road.
No.
Never any shows, tours, ever came face to face.
Never. Me and Hammer, two people. The difference is, and I will say this about Hammer.
Okay, hold on. Before you go to Hammer.
No, really quick.
You and Hammer never came face to face either?
No. I would,
okay, go ahead.
If I get the opportunity to meet Hammer, I would apologize. If I met Hammer, I would apologize. And okay, it's not even me, it's not even my fuck up, but I would just on GP make amends with the man.
Why?
Because now that I look back at it, I recognize that the wordplay that we did and how he took it, I understand how it could be offensive. I don't like how he handled himself, and I don't want to talk about that, but I would make amends with the man just because I could see it from his perspective now. I have a clearer vision of it than I did before. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, I had this funny conversation with Questlove. He said, you know, what's crazy, Serch, is that record it went from the Antichrist to being a record that makes people laugh when I play it today. People enjoy it, put smiles on people's faces. You know, what happens with time, especially with music, is it mellows you, puts you in a different zone, you know? And there's no denying that Ice Ice Baby was a huge hit. It was a hit
Huge.
and a half.
Monster.
Monster. But I didn't see it as a hit back then. What I saw it as is a huge roadblock, a bridge that was opening, a drawbridge that opened, that prevented the rest of the culture to get across.
You know, I sat down with Dr. Dre, and I'm talking about Dr. Dre and Ed
Original
Lover.
concept, yeah.
And I asked Dre about, because what many people don't realize is you and Hammer, it could have went down during the final episode, the final taping of Yo MTV Raps, if I got my facts straight.
You do.
And I asked him, I said, what happened? Like, why didn't it go down? And he was like, Prez, it's because of us. There was no security there that day. He was like, that was such a moment in hip hop that even though it was people in the building that clearly had problems with one another, they had more respect for us than the problems that they had for one another. And they understood if it went down in that building, that it would mess it up for all of hip hop. Do you see it that way, that when it could have definitely went down with you and Hammer, and you was rolling deep that day, did you look at the landscape and say, I can't do this here? You know,
no,
I gotta get
it's funny, you know, and I do want to, I want to correct something that I said on an interview that I think I need to correct. I had said previously in an interview that, you know, we were rolling deep and there were certain people that were holding. That was inaccurate. That's just not accurate. I remember it a lot differently today than I remembered it when I did that interview. I was rolling deep. I had a lot of people with me. After I rhymed and after everybody rhymed, Ed Lover came up to me and said, yo, Hammer's here. Why don't we make peace? Why don't you, last show, why don't you give each other a pound and hug it out? There was no hugging. There was no hugging out, you know, for me. And I remember that as soon as I said no, it was kind of whatever. We all hugged it. You know, we all were giving each other pounds. I was with Chub Rock and all of that. And I remember looking around. I remember I was with my man Sabak. I was with my man DJ Eclipse. And I said prior that a lot of my homeboys for nonfiction were there. It's not accurate. Ill Bill wasn't there. Gore-Tex wasn't there. Necro wasn't there. I remember it differently. I had other heads with me, but they weren't there. But I definitely did not want him leaving the state of New York upright. I didn't really know how to do it because I was unprepared, but I was so mad at how he handled, how it was all handled, that I just wanted to handle it myself. And I didn't care. At that point, I didn't care if I went to jail. I didn't care if I got killed. I just wanted to deal with it because I was so angry. I was so mad. And I was so, I don't even know the word to express my emotions. But I felt like a victim, and I shouldn't feel like a victim because I didn't do anything wrong. I was the guy who was at the spotlight of it because I was still in the spotlight. But the dude who made the comment, the dude who made the line, the dude who wrote that, no one ever stepped to that dude because no one cared about that dude. At the end of the day, he became inconsequential. You know, at the end of the day, he didn't contribute another lick to the culture that made any difference. He's a collector. And his contributions to the culture, besides the music he made with me, is that he's a collector. I'd like to believe I've done a little more than collect. I'd like to believe that my contribution to this culture is music, it's fashion, it is getting artists on the radio, it is music integration, it is getting artists who deserved a shot. I don't know. I just see our contributions very differently, and I see the ability and how to uplift this thing a little differently. And at that time, back then, I was so, if you see my face and you watch that freestyle, I'm watching Rakim and I got a face like I'm a 10-year-old fanboy. Like I'm cheesing. I mean, everybody's rhyming and I'm cheesing and I'm just like, I'm just in fan mode, total fan mode in that moment. And then it pivoted real quick when they told me he was in the building. But you're right. But Dre is right, and Ed is right, and T Money was right, and all those dudes were right. Like it was them. There was not going to be anything that got set off in that building. It just wasn't going to happen. There's too much good feeling.
Yeah, that was an incredible day. And it's, you know, it's these pivotal moments in hip hop. It's these moments just in life. That was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
It was a day of celebration for anybody who had a chance to live through it, watch it as a fan, yourself, participate in it. So I'm so happy it didn't go down. I want to pivot for a second because, again, we're talking about Serch the artist. I want to talk briefly as Serch the executive producer. You worn so many hats. I saw an interview and one of my all-time favorites from Queens, G-Rap. G-Rap said he was the one who actually brought Nas to you. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So it's really interesting because G-Rap was my man. Like, so where G-Rap lived in Corona was really close to my apartment, my first apartment me and my now wife, then girl, had in Forest Hills. So he had an artist named White Boy. And I loved White Boy. Like I loved the way he rhymed. And like, so I would go to G-Rap's mom's house and G-Rap's house in Corona, which was right near Left Rack. And this was about 92, 93. Yeah, 92, 93. And Large Professor's album, seminal album, Main Source, Breaking Atoms comes out. Live at the Barbecue comes out. Everyone knows that verse, Nas's verse. Streets disciple, my rap's a trifle. I shoot slugs from a brain just like stampede the stage. I leave the microphone split, play pretty toughy while I'm on some pretty tone shit. Verbal assassin, my architect pleases. When I was 12, I went to hell for snuffing Jesus. Nasty Nas is a rebel to America. Police murderer, I'm causing hysteria. My troops roll up with a strange force. I was locked in a cage and lit out by the main source. Swimming in golf, lifeguard. Put on a bulletproof, I strike hard. Kidnap the president's wife without a plan and hanging like the Ku Klux Klan. I melt mics till the sound waves over. Before stepping to me, rather step to Jehovah. Slamming MCs on cement. Verbally, I'm iller than the AIDS patient. I move swift and uplift your mind, shoot the gift when I riff and rhyme. Rapping sniper, speaking real words. My thoughts react like Steven Spielberg's poetry attack. Paragraphs punch hard. My brain is insane. I'm out to lunch, God. Silence is tight. Last. Anyway, I could go on. So everyone knew that verse, backwards, forward. It was just incredible. And I go into G-Rap's house and there's Nas, Nasty Nas. And he's sitting there and G-Rap introduced me to Nas. And at the time, I was really trying to fuck with White Boy, and I was already signing OC, and I was already kind of building my production company. And he was like, "Yo, it's Nasty Nas," and I'm like, "Oh shit, Nas, what up?" And he was quiet. He was like 16 years old. He was just sitting there quiet, and he was too young. Like, I wasn't gonna sign a 16-year-old kid. Like, there was just something about that moment that just didn't feel right. And I figured that G-Rap was probably gonna sign him. It would have been, I didn't know. So, but yes, G-Rap introduced, and I see that day, one of my greatest assets and my liability, because it gets blurred, is that I have a bit of a photographic memory. Like, I remember things like where I was, what they were wearing, where they were sitting. And he had a sofa. When you walked in the house, there was a sofa on the side of the wall, and Nas was sitting in the middle of the sofa. And I'll never forget that. And G-Rap was here, like he was here, and White Boy was over here, and like, but yeah, he was the first one. But I wasn't gonna sign him. He introduced me to him, and I just thought G-Rap was gonna sign him.
Okay, we've all heard the story, so we don't have to go deep down that road. But I do want to touch on something.
Sure.
This pivotal moment in hip hop. Probably one of the biggest battles of our time, Nas and Jay-Z. If I remember this correctly, you're working at Def Jam at the time. And in New York in particular, Jay-Z is
Jay-Z.
He's Jay-Z. That's the heavyweight champ.
Rockefeller.
Nas was 100% Nas, but he, at that moment,
was not as hot.
It wasn't like he was, the Nas that dropped Illmatic. He wasn't. Nas was definitely an icon, but Jay was the here and now icon at that moment. New York was split because people did not want to give it up and say that Nas bodied Jay-Z with that ether solo. What went through your mind? And first and foremost, did you hear Ether in advance? And what went through your mind, number one, as a hip hop fan, when Nas came back with Ether?
So I never heard Ether in advance. At that time, I was already not working with Nas. I had executive produced Illmatic, and I executive produced It Was Written. But Nas and I had a deal on It Was Written where I would be basically behind the scenes. I had set up Ill Will Records for him. I'd set up his production deal. And my responsibility on It Was Written was just to make sure the legal was right, make sure all the deals were done, and that he had no issues. So I was already at that time working at Def Jam and also building Ecko Unlimited. And I'm sure you remember this pretty vividly because you and I were both doing radio at the time as well. There was a roundtable on Angie Martinez's show at Hot 97.
Yep, I was going to bring it up, so go ahead.
K Slay, Drama King, Funk Flex, Angie Martinez. Who else was at that table? There were 5 people at the table. Oh, I don't want to do anybody.
It was Slay.
Enough.
It was
enough. It was Slay, enough.
Flex.
Enough. Flex. Angie.
Cypher might have been up there if I can remember.
Maybe. Might have been Cypher. But there was 5 people there. I'll never forget this. Never, as long as Big Cap, rest in peace. Cap was there. I'll never forget this. I'll never forget this as long as I live. They're having this conversation, and it's intellectualizing this battle, and I love it. I'm living for it, right? And they're talking about the wordplay, and they're talking about the effortlessness of how Nas fucking bodies him. Queen's Brothers Run You Brothers, ask Russell Simmons. Ooh.
Crazy.
Like, just how many of those lies are going to come out your fat lips? Like, they're just breaking it down, right? And Angie is counterpunching. To be a good host, counterpunching, because it's obvious with Cap there it's obvious that there is a lean towards Nas. And she is countering and doing what somebody's supposed to do in this position of being a host, which is you don't take one side versus the other. You allow your panelists, and as a moderator, you position. And this dude from Brooklyn calls. And I'll never forget, because he said his name is blank from Brooklyn. And she said, and he said, yeah, how can I help you? And this dude live on the air said, yo, why you sucking Jay's dick, Angie? Why you all on his dick? Why you on his dick? And these dudes are like, whoa, whoa. And they're like, nah, fuck that. He's cursing and it's live. And she's like, yo, why I gotta be on his dick? Like, why you gotta be disrespectful? And she's like, and then they click. That was the temperature. That was the temperature. People
but I'm gonna go.
don't really understand the temperature. The temperature was that. And I'll fast forward, and I wish I could get Clark Kent on here right now, because Clark said something to me about the battle and what Jay said to him privately. And I don't want to speak out of turn because it's Clark's story, not mine. But that was the temperature. The temperature was palpable about, this was Ali Frazier. This was Ali Foreman. This was Foreman Frazier. This was Tyson. It's Hagler Hearns. This is,
Tyson,
I mean, this
Lennox,
is
Hagler Hearns.
Tyson. I mean, this was two dudes in the middle of the ring just hammering each other. And you knew it was bad. And I say this to people, and people can say Takeover better than Ether, Ether better than Takeover. But I leave them with this. If Takeover was truly the knockout punch, why did Jay do a second record where he talked about skeeting on his baby mamas? You don't go back in the lab if you won. You don't go back in the lab and demean the relationship that you had with Nas's baby mama to try to get points in the street. You don't do that. If that don't answer it, I don't know what does. And even and Jay has said in interviews that even his mother stepped to him and said, "I'm really disappointed in you because you said that." So if Ether didn't body that record, why did Jay go back? And not only that, it's still like this. It's still like this. Nas on his last album, King Disease 3, right? SMH, on that SMH record, he said, yo, I'll still go to Jay and it's on, brother. They want the title.
You know, I remember that day. I was actually at the station that day.
Wow.
And I was so disgusted. Serch.
Why?
Because they didn't want to give it to Nas. Remember, you got to remember in that moment what Jay was. Like, he was that guy, and he was very much a friend to the station. And I'm not saying anything out of turn.
I just hear it, I remember it differently, but go ahead. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
If you can remember when they took a vote.
Yeah,
Flex,
it was 4-1. It was 4-1.
Hold up, Flex himself originally voted for Jay.
Right.
Flex. Angie voted for Jay. It was K Slay that went berserk up there.
Yep.
Rest in peace, K Slay. And K Slay called all of them out on the air, like, yo, y'all are bugging. And just said what was obvious, because it was. It doesn't take nothing away from what either of those men have become in the world of hip hop.
Absolutely.
But it just was obvious. And everybody was scared to say it except for the streets. People were worried about their relationship with Jay. It was such a big deal up there. But, you know, it's crazy because at the time, like I started this off by saying, you have been knowing Nas since he's 16. You're also an exec at Def Jam. Rockefeller is distributed by Def Jam. Jay later goes on to become president of Def Jam. So I just wondered, like, where did your loyalties lie, even as an executive, but also as a fan of hip hop?
Oh
You know,
no, it was
a lot of people-
I told Jay to his face that Nas bodied you in front of Kareem and Big and Kareem, I mean, and Dame and Jay. I was like, yo, you got bodied by Nas.
He did. That was I mean, Nas came back so hard, and the way that song opened up, my God. All right, switch topics with me. I know you got, I always admired you. We're not going to go down this road because you had this discussion in many interviews. You know, in terms of Nas being signed to your production company, Searchlight Productions, you only took a small fraction. Anybody else would have done. I mean, let's just keep it 100%. Standard business would have given you more points on that album than you chose to take. Not even gouging. But you always was showing I didn't want to be that Jew who took advantage of another young black man. And I always thought that was so admirable to think for you to even think in that direction, because truth be told, when Nas signed to you, you weren't much older than him. Like for you to even be thinking in that direction, it wasn't like you were some seasoned old man. Like you were still a young executive just coming out of being an artist yourself. So I thought that was, I thought that was real dope of you. But my real question is, have you ever gone on to sell your publishing?
Which publishing? My own? Like
no. The off of the Nas Illmatic album.
Yeah, I sold it in October. I sold it in November.
This past November.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
wow.
I sold my share. Yeah.
What made you do that after all these years?
35-year rule.
There you go.
So I only have like 8 years left on my 2 albums.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was going to make any real money, that multiple, if it was less, I wouldn't have been able to sell it. And not that I wasn't making bad money. I was making great money. I was making sizable money. But for me, looking at the future, and not even my future, my children's future and my children's future, and trying to leave a legacy for my family, I had to say, look, I can't keep collecting these checks every year. I got to get one big check and now replenish and start to acquire new catalog. So I'm signing a super dope producer. I'm signing this amazing writer. An artist I signed 11 years ago is now starting to blow. Shout out to my man, Bodie James. What up, though, Detroit? 227 Concreatures, Griselda, Butcher, what up? So, now Bodie's starting to like happen. So it's about thanking Nas and my family thanking him for allowing me to benefit and to allowing me to be a part of that small part of his story. And now just making a nice check to now acquire new catalog. And also to use that money to also get my catalog back. So that's what I'm using it for.
That's dope. Serch, I want to talk to you, and I've never really heard you talk about this in interviews. Marc Ecko, Ecko Unlimited, the clothing line. You were a big part of launching that brand. How did you and Marc Ecko even meet?
So as soon as I left Wild Pitch, the last group that I wanted to sign was these 2 brothers in Brooklyn. This one kid named Necro and this another kid named Ill Bill. I'd seen them at jams and they were just crazy. And by the time I met with them, Bill and Necro didn't want to do anything together. But Ill Bill had all these homeboys, and then I had my homeboy Sabak Red, who was my hype man and my MC partner when I was solo. So I said, "Yo, let's put a group together. Let's form like a white super group called Nonfiction." And so we signed a Geffen at Nonfiction, and Bill's dad had a really dope clothing store right on the corner of Broadway and Hudson Street in New York. And I was seeing all these graffiti shirts with the Ecko joints on them. And Ill Bill said to me, yeah, that's this kid, Marc Ecko. He's a graffiti artist. He's like, yo, every time, we can't keep his shirts in the store. Every time he sells them, they move every time. He's like, yo, you should talk to the dude. Like, supposedly he's expanding his brand. He needs help. So I went to see them in Jersey, and then I went to see them again at their office in New York, and they were just starting their line. And I met Marc, and Marc, like you said, he was doing graffiti shirts in his house, and he had his first line, very first line, and he was about to take it to market. And he asked me if I could help, and I was like, yeah, of course I can help. I'm like, of course. And I brought that clothing to my friend Emil Wilberkin at Vibe, who was the editor-in-chief at Vibe at the time. And he lost his mind and did a whole spread on the line, like as he's the next new. And on that, this was really important. It was an important lesson about the box. And not the box, the video thing, but the box that people like to peg us in. Oh, Sean Prez, he's a radio promotion guy. That's how I know him. I know him from Bad Boy. No one knows that you managed Puff. No one knows about PMI. No one knows about the Wyden Kennedy things you've done. Walter Isaacson, creating street events for T-Mobile, Global Spin Awards, DJ Khan. They just see the box. Sean Prez, right. Executive at Bad Boy. So when I said, oh, yo, I had big news. Came to Marc, yo, they're going to do a whole spread about you being the next big urban designer, street designer. He said, nope, I don't want to do it. I said, what do you mean? I know. I will not allow them to call me an urban designer. I will not let them call me a street designer. I'm an American design house. Ecko Unlimited is an American design house. Okay.
How old is Marc at this time?
26. I'm 26.
6.
American
and
design.
He's just starting his line.
Not only that, he said to me, he goes, Serch, at 29, I will be the youngest member to sit on the board of the International Design. There's like this board that Donna Karan sits on, Ralph Lauren, Calvin Klein. I forget what it's called, the International Academy of Designers and something. I forget. He goes, but I'm going to be the youngest person at 29. 3 years from now, I'm going to be on that dais. Bro, 29, Calvin Klein and Ralph Lauren walked him to that dais.
Wow.
29. He said, I'm an American design house. I will not be put in a box. They will not label me. I am the unlabeled. And I went to Emil and I said, Emil, if you're going to do the piece, you can't call him a street designer. You can't call him an urban designer. He wants to be known as an American design house. And Emil looked back and he said, that's dope. Because I thought there was going to be pushback and like, we should be thankful to even be in the build. That first article with the Ecko spread and Vibe, there was 6 pages of American Design House, American Design. And that's how he set the bar, even though we did everything hip hop. I had Angie still to this day, whenever she sees me, gives me grief because we shot a photo shoot of her in Ecko clothes and I shot her toes and her toes did not have toenail polish. And she gets on me to this day. The only person, Serch, only person to see them dogs without them nail polish. He was hot. But anyway, everything we did, even though it was street culture, then we were the first brand to cross into, X Games. And like, he had such a vision, light years ahead of anyone, still to this day, light years ahead of anyone. And it was just such a pleasure building that company. We went from 1.5 million in 95, 96. We were at 1.3 billion when I left at 2000. $1.3 billion in sales a year.
What was your role at the company, Serch?
Marketing and promotion. So I was in charge of artist integration, artist relationships, artist campaigns. There were 2 big shows we would do a year. There was the show in Vegas and ASR in San Diego. I was responsible for getting the talent. I was responsible for all the parties. I want to share a funny story with you because I was waiting for you to talk about this. So we would have to go to Vegas every 6 months. I just want to FYI say that I finally told my wife the truth about this now 30 some odd years later. So we're just starting to really expand. And there were 3 people that were at the top tier of the company. There was Mark, there was Marcy, and a guy named Seth. Seth was the businessman behind the business. And we have all these people coming to the booth, and there's a lot of excitement, but there's a lot of like, maybe we'll take, maybe, yeah, Bloomingdale's, maybe on the fence. Seth hands me a black card and says, I don't care what you do, Serch. I don't care what you do, but you better go do promo. Whatever the F you do, these guys better come back the next day and buy.
It's the wrong thing to tell a promo man, but go ahead.
Oh my God. And by the way, the only thing I know about promo is what I learned in radio promo, which you're now going to know.
Yep.
I ran into a cab and I jump in a cab and the guy says, where to? And I said, I want you to take me to the best strip club in Vegas. And he takes me to Crazy Horse 2. It's 11 o'clock in the morning. It's 11 o'clock. There's nobody there. I knock on the door. General manager opens up. He goes, nah. Serch, what the fuck? MC Serch? Yo, we're not even open yet. There's no women here. I said, no, I came to see you. Come on in. I said, look, I'm dropping this black card. I want you to open up an account. Here's the black card. I'm going to be sending people. Serch sent me. Whoever says Serch sent me, you take good care of them. What do you mean? You know what I mean. I don't want them coming out of here dry. You do and you do and do and do. He said, you sure? Absolutely. People are just going to come and say, Serch sent me. And I want them in the back and I don't want to know nothing, but you just do. I go back. Seth says, took care of it? Took care of it. Solka. So now I'm walking around the room. Oh, this is the head buyer in Bloomingdale's. Oh, cool. Hey, what's up, man? Serch, I do promotion. Look, here's this card. Go see this guy. Tell him Serch sent you. Head buyer Macy's. Oh, no. Head buyer, this one. Oh, really? Yep. You go to Crazy Horse 2. You tell him Serch sent you. Have a great time, but then come back here and order. Next day, 45 million in orders.
Woo!
45 million. Seth's like, what did you do? I said, you don't want to know nothing? Just sign the Amex. Every month, just sign the Amex. That's all I need you to do.
Crazy.
Every show in Vegas, people like, I was like, yep, you go, just come back and order. Just come back and order. People don't know what the fuck we're doing. They just know that people are like, next day, yeah, we'll do 7 million in order. We'll do rocket ship. I leave the company. This is 2000. I leave the company. I'm in Detroit at radio. Mark calls me. Yo, what up, man? Hey, what's up, man? Hey, question. Do you still have the black card? What black card? The black card from the company. I never had a black card. Serch, you had a black card. I'm like, no, I never. It was Seth's. Wait a minute. Hold on. So you never closed the account? What are you talking about? Serch, I just got a $150,000 bill from the Crazy Horse 2. I said, wait, what? He said, yeah, I just got a $150,000 bill. People are still going saying Serch sent me. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like 10 years later, it's like, yeah, people are going saying Serch sent me. I've been paying for whatever was going on in there for 10 years. That's one of the tricks that we used in blowing up the company.
Yo, you want to know what's crazy? Because, you know, obviously you come from the world of music, radio promotion. I don't know if those tactics were commonplace in fashion, but you definitely pulled a page right out of freaking
Let me tell you something. My wife,
records played.
yo, let me tell you something. My wife, we had a rule. We had a rule because she knew the game. So she and I had a rule that if I was on the road with an artist, or if I was on the road, I could not go to a strip club with someone she didn't know and someone she didn't know their wife. So a lot of times I would take a DJ to a club and say, yo, I got to leave you here. Here's some money. Go have fun. Tell me if you need me to pick you up, you need a ride home, whatever. And that was it. I would just let them go. And they would go and do what they do and yada, yada, yada. Or I would call my wife and say, yo, Chantel, listen, I'm in North Carolina. I'm with blah, blah, blah. We're going into this and this and this. Oh, yeah. Nah, it's cool. Go. Or nah, it's not cool. You ain't going nowhere. All right. That's it.
Yo, so obviously Marc Ecko went on to do huge things, blew up that company, moves on. He does his thing with Complex. Looking back in hindsight, they say you can always see a horse, a winner, from the starting gate.
Mhm.
We talked about Nas, we talked about Marc Ecko, and I'm sure we talked about a bunch of other people in this conversation. But those are two you were around very early in their journey. Number one, could you see they got it? This is they're not average. They are definitely going to the top of their industry. And number two, was it something about them? Is there a commonality? Is there a thread that runs through both of them that only winners tend to have?
Well, I mean, I could easily ping pong that back to you and ask you if that's what you saw about Puff when you first started working with him, right?
That's real.
Certain people, you just see it. It's just obvious. And I've been really fortunate from Russell and Lior and Chris Lighty, may he rest in peace, and Marc Ecko, and even his sister Marcy, and even Raphael Jacobi and my team at Nouveau. Like, there's certain things that you notice about people that tend to not only see the world differently, but they simplify how it works. And the one commonality, the one common DNA that every executive I've ever been around that was truly successful, you know, I'm talking about with B's next to the name, you know, billionaires. They all are able to make very complex things very simple. You know, take Rob Stone and John Cohen at the Fader and Cornerstone. I've known them guys since middle school basketball. I've known Rob Stone and John since we all played middle school basketball league. It was obvious that Rob and John were going to be bigger than what they were at their record labels. It was just obvious. When I met Raphael Jacobi for the first time in Detroit, and he was talking about Nouveau, after the success he had with Hypnotic, it was obvious I had to jump on and figure a way to get on. The Mass Appeal guys who were started as the Ego Trip guys, Sasha Jenkins, Elliot Wilson, Brent Rollins, Gabe Acevedo. It was obvious there was something special about those human beings. But the other side is also true. You can see failure in people that think they're going to be successful because they just don't got it. They just don't got it. And the reason they don't got it is because they talk it and they don't know how to walk it. And there are a lot of people that claim they got it and they don't got it, right? When I first met Hovain, may he rest in peace, I was doing a deal with Troy Ave for Nouveau. And I remember leaving the meeting and my partner was like, yo, what do you think of Troy? And I said, yo, Troy's a monster, but his manager's the one.
You said, but his manager what?
But his manager's the one. Hovain was the one. And Hovain went on to manage, I mean, everyone from Styles P to Smoke Dizza to Run. I mean, Hovain was the guy. Troy Ave is special and is still special, but Hovain was the guy. You could just tell that this guy was built for greatness. It's unfortunate he was taken from us too early, but he was built for it. You could just tell. And again, I've been really fortunate to be around a lot of very, very successful entrepreneurs, and they all have that DNA. This one thing in their commonality is that they make something that's complex really simple and digestible.
That's so dope. I never heard it put that way, Serch, but you're so damn right. You really are. That is such a real statement. You spoke about Nouveau, another venture that you really helped to put that brand on the map. What was your role over at Nouveau?
So my role in Nouveau is basically every single video, song integration, brand deal we ever did, I did. That was my role. Every single deal. So I really enjoy telling this story because it's one of my favorites. So when I first met Raphael Jacoby, who was the owner, he came to me through a mutual friend of ours, John Vasquez, who used to run Puff's restaurant.
Shout out to Chef.
Yep. John came to see me in Detroit because they were looking for a radio ambassador in Detroit. And I said, yeah, but I'm way bigger than a radio ambassador. Like, this is what I can do. This is what I bring to the table. This is, how I can operate and how I can make things, work. And I told Raphael I needed a contract. He said, I don't do contracts. I said, oh, sorry, I don't work without a contract. Sorry, I don't do anything without a contract. Still to this day, I don't do a single deal without a contract. I don't care if it's an email. I need something in paper that just details what the deal is, period. I don't trust nobody. I don't take anybody's word for face. I don't care how many deals you did with Blase Splee and had no problems. I don't do anything without a contract. So Raphael gives me this contract, very short tail, means, short tail contract means it's like 6 months or less. He's like, look, I'm gonna give you a contract. This is what I'm gonna offer you. And this is what you got to do. I was like, all right, no problem. I can do that. And what it was he wanted me to go and create a video and song integration for their brand with the biggest artists in the world. Biggest artist in the world in 2007 was T-Pain. Period. T-Pain was the biggest artist in the world. 2007, 2008. There was no one bigger. And I knew his managers. And I went to them and I said, hey, I got an idea for a deal. I got this new brand coming out. It's called Nouveau. And I remember going to see a guy who had worked with Raphael before, another mutual friend of ours named Nick Storm. And I said to Nick, I said, hey, tell me about Raphael. What are some things I should know? What shouldn't I know? And the first thing Nick said was, yo, you should stay away from that Nouveau shit. Ain't nobody drinking that shit. He said, Raphael thinks men are going to drink pink shit. He's fucking out of his mind. I said, okay, but separate from that, that's a personal opinion. What should I know about the guy? He kind of gives me the lay of the land. That's cool. Sign a contract. And I go after T-Pain. It's the first thing I do. And Mike Blumstein, his manager, and this guy, Dave, we're going back and forth. We finally settle on a deal. And he says, look, he's in the studio right now working on a song. It'd be perfect. Let's close this deal. I said, okay. And 3 months later, I bring Nouveau, blame it on the alcohol. I'm gonna take a shot of the Nouveau, shorty, then you know it's going down. People don't realize that was a built-in natural integration, because what I did was I said, look, I don't need him to say anything except something natural. It's got to be totally natural involved in the song. They're like, yo, it's a song about alcohol and Jamie Foxx is doing it. Great. So we paid for the entire video, paid for him, and we went from 600 cases a month to 60,000 in 18 months.
So that, first and foremost, you were the one who put that deal together, which obviously landed a record that went on to get a Grammy, if I can remember correctly.
An American Music Award. In fact, during the PET Awards, which is one of my personal, I have it saved. One of my favorite scenes ever is Payne runs on stage with a bottle of Nouveau. And they're showing the whole audience singing the song. And they zoom in on Puff and he's mouthing, blame it on Ciroc, 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 Ciroc. And the next
Boy, you gotta.
And the next day, so three things happened right after the BET Awards. A, I moved to Florida. B, my partner was at Diageo and he was there. How the fuck is Nouveau everywhere? Why the fuck is Ciroc not everywhere? Who the fuck is doing all these marketing promotions? Why don't I, Puff being Puff, screaming on everybody. Not knowing that it's little old me behind the scenes, making all these moves. And he finds out it's me. I don't know how, but Egypt was working for him at the time, right? And another person. I'm in my house, unpacking my house. I just moved to Florida. And she calls me. She goes, hey, Serch. I said, well, oh shit, Egypt, what up? Oh shit. Hey, so we hear you doing this Nouveau stuff. I said, yeah. Why don't you come work for Ciroc? I said, I said, well, let me ask you a question. I own Nouveau. Do I get to own Ciroc? And she goes, what do you mean own it? I said, yeah, I own a percentage. So is Puff going to give me a piece of Ciroc? No, there's nothing to talk about. Thanks for calling. I'm unpacking my house. Love to the family. Click. That was it. And we sold 2 years later. We sold to Diageo for $469 million. 3 years.
Yo, let me ask you something. What did and I don't know if I remember this in real time or after the fact, but wasn't you trying to do a deal with Trey Songz for Nouveau?
I was.
What happened with that deal? Because I never seen it come to fruition.
No. So unfortunately, that was one of those deals that I was this close to getting it done. We did Say Ah, the video. We did the Say Ah video. We were trying to get ahead of the record to not have it come out and change it with a Nouveau lyric integration. We flew Trey Songz, his manager at the time, it might still be his manager, it was Kevin Lyles. We flew him. We flew a woman out. Williams is her last name. I forget her first name. No disrespect to you, Queen. And it was Trey and his bodyguard. And we're in a hotel private, and then we went to dinner, and then we went out someplace else, and we all shook on a deal. Deal was done. Deal was done. Kevin said, don't worry about it. And I knew Kevin from the promo days. When I met Kevin Lyles, he was a regional in DC, and he was heavy. He was a big boy. And then I worked for him when he was the president of Def Jam. So we had a long history. So I had no reason not to believe his word. I figured his word was going to be bond. And we got back and they had amnesia. They took a free flight to down to Miami. They made us pay for a private plane. They tricked off. We had a huge bill and they left me. It's the only time Raphael said to me, if you ever do that to me again, you're fired.
Damn.
Yeah. But I mean, we had deals with Pusha T, Fat Joe, Lil Wayne, Big Sean. And the other thing I'm really proud of on the Latin side is we helped give money to a lot of independent artists who now are the biggest artists in reggaeton. I met Bad Bunny when he was a bartender in San Juan. We paid for his first 5 videos. Anuel, Maluma, Azuna, Fuego, Farruko, all the biggest artists that people love today got started because Nuvo gave them money for videos.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's so dope.
Archangel, another one of my favorites. Like, yeah, so that was a big part of like what I loved doing, and what I continue to love doing is creating opportunities for artists where their music and their artistry is not only properly compensated, but it's well compensated. And there's a difference. Properly compensated means that it understands where you sit in the world and how your view is. But the other part of it is making sure that as you grow and as the brand grows, you're compensated at the same time. So there's a level up all the way.
3, 2, 1. Yo, Serch, you got so much damn history, man. We could do this all day. Before I gotta start bringing this thing home. So I gotta ask you, Billboard, I think it was Billboard. They just released about a month or 2 ago, top 50 rappers in hip hop. Did you get to see that list?
Yeah, I did. I got to see it. I think when everybody else did.
What was your thoughts?
It's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, like everybody else, I have my own top 50. I mean, look, I think it's subjective, right? And anytime you're gonna do a list about rap artists, it's gonna be super subjective. I actually, a mutual friend of ours who's the editor that we both know and love, Daytwan Thomas. I call him and bust his chops about it all the time. I'm like, dude, really? Like, really?
Yo, I'm gonna tell you, I saw that list. I'm stunned because I just have to know who voted on these people, and it is subjective.
No, there wasn't. First of all, it wasn't a vote. There was no vote. It was
do you mean
5
it wasn't
people
a
in a
vote?
room, or 10 people. It was 10 people in a room.
It's unfortunate because that, it came out in a very, very reputable publication, Billboard. And many people would take that list to heart. If you made the list, God bless you, but there were so many people who should have been on that list, and the order of the list was nothing short of, it was just a disrespect to so many people who were even on it, who were rated, in 49, 48, 50. I'm like, wow, like who the hell put this list together?
Right. But isn't it an honor just to be in the top 50? I mean, I would have loved to have been 47.
I suppose, but
I would have loved to have been 49. I would love to have been special honorary mention 53. I mean, look, there's 2 ways to look at it, right? If you're on the list itself, you want to be higher on the list. If you're a fan of the artist who's in the back 25, you want them to be further up on the list. There's not going to be many times, if ever, that everyone's going to agree on the list. It's not.
No, and that much is
feasible.
true. That much is true, but it is an honor to be on, I guess, a top 50. I just wouldn't take that top 50 as the definitive top 50 list.
Well, is Billboard, but you said Billboard's a reputable magazine.
It is. It is.
But what is it? Wait a minute, but Prez, think about this. What is Billboard reputable for?
It's reputable for music. I wouldn't say rap music.
Right. No, it's reputable for music. XXL, I would have a heavier, if that was the list in XXL, I'd be like, if that was the source, if that was Joe
Revolt.
Budden's list.
If that was Revolt's list, I would feel away.
If that was the Cornerstones list.
Correct.
If that was Complex's list. If that was any of our true voices. Now, Daytwan is a voice of the culture. There's no doubt about it. His his contributions as a writer and a contributor to this culture are just as heavy and deep as any artist. But I don't see Billboard as a litmus for the taste of the culture. I just don't.
No, you're right.
I don't think that it's fair to say that because Billboard is a reputable music magazine, it represents hip hop. That's
Well, here's the deal. That list has somehow become the list during the first 50 years of hip hop.
To who?
It's the only list that's out.
Okay, so wait a minute.
So it has
nobody knows, but you should know better than anybody else. The pioneer never gets the love. The pioneer never gets the real food. It's the next list that gets the food.
I hope a credible source, a credible hip hop source, comes out with a new list this year.
Oh, definitely. There's going to be 100 lists, bro. That's just the first one. People are watching the fallout. They're like, oh, do I want to I want to tip my toe in the pool? XXL is going to do a list. The Source is going to do a list. Vibe is going to do a list. Complex is going to do a list. Cornerstone. Someone is going to really have the balls, whether it's Bars on 95 or it's $1 million worth of game or it's Button or Math Hoffa. Somebody's going to have the balls to say, okay, this is the definitive list. Like, we know our shit. This is the definitive list.
Here's something. I want to get your opinion on it. Melly Mel, I'm not sure if you see, but he's been very vocal. He just did a series of interviews out there. And he was like, yo, Eminem is overrated. On that particular list, the Billboard list, Eminem is number 5, made top 5. And he's like, the only reason he made top 5 is because he's a white rapper. What's your thoughts on it?
I mean, it's nonsense. I mean, it's total utter nonsense. He also said something to the fact that he doesn't hear blank in the club. Like, there was an artist, he was like, I don't hear that artist in the club. I'm like, Mel, when was the last time you were in a club? I don't see you in a club. Like, I'd be in Miami. I'd be out. I don't ever see you out. Like, where are you? I just feel like Mel, as an ancestor, as an architect, deserves to be heard. But I don't know if I'm in a position to criticize how he feels. Like, I think at this point in my life, because I'm also on the back nine, I don't know if I'm even in a place to criticize how he feels. I think every grown man, especially men like Mel, who paved the way, they're entitled to their opinion. I don't need to counter it. I don't need to question it. The only thing I want to question is when he says things like, I don't hear records in the club. Like, bro, when are you in the club? Like, if you don't think he's top because he's white, that you're entitled to your opinion. That's fine. Like, that's fine. Eminem's not in my top 5. He's in my top 10, but he's not my top 5. But that's my top 5. I still love Marshall. I still love Paul. I still love everyone in that camp. I just don't think he's top 5. But that's not an opinion. That's just my opinion.
Hold on. So Serch, Michael Barron doesn't believe Eminem belongs in the top 5?
No, I didn't say that. I said he's not in my top 5.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. In your top 5.
But you're saying, does he deserve to be in my top 5? It's not about deserve or not deserve.
But I'm clear. Okay, so let me watch my words.
No, it's fine. I understand what you're saying.
He is not in you as a hip hop fan, as an artist. He is not in your top 5.
Correct. He's in my top 10, but he's not my top 5. Rakim, Chuck D, KRS, Nas, Black Thought. And then
it's crazy.
And then it's J, G-Rap, Kane, M, Scarface.
Hold on. Where the hell's Notorious B.I.G.?
He's not even in my top 30.
Okay, we're gonna switch topics. Like, there's no way I can continue that part of the conversation. All right, we talked about Melly Mel. We talked about Melly Mel, your man Academics, who is really a voice for this new era of hip hop enthusiast, listener. He said old school rappers look dusty. Yo, I was actually surprised because you waited until after an onslaught of hip hop icons came out and spoke their piece and their thoughts. What made you decide I just need to get my opinion out here and really just share my thoughts on what this young man just said?
It was three things. One is, my involvement in Complex with Rich Antonello and Mark gave Academics his platform to become who he is, right? Everyday struggle. So that was A. And I've seen him grow and I've seen his star rise. And I'm really, really happy for him. I think he has done a really good job. Has he made some mistakes? Absolutely. Has he got caught up in his ego? Absolutely. But who of us haven't, as artists, as entertainers, who of us haven't gotten in that place, early in our lives? Let's say. B, I really felt it was important to watch Russell, to watch the other people that came before me make a comment. But the main reason I made a comment was because I was in Jersey and I got the privilege to meet Akademiks' manager, and we were at dinner. It was me, him, an artist he was representing that we were interested in signing, my business partner, and a young man that was there. And we started talking about it. And I was wearing a Patek Philippe 5411 Nautilus, which is a nice watch.
Very nice watch.
This is a nice watch too, but just one of the collection. And we were leaving the dinner table and I said goodbye, and I had not mentioned it at all. And as I'm leaving, I said, "Oh, by the way, tell your man Academic, this dusty rapper got a Patek 5411 on his wrist." And his manager goes, "Oh, really, Serch?" I was like, "Yeah, man, really." And he said to me, he goes, when he said that, he wasn't talking about you. And that's why I had to say it. Because he was talking about me. He was talking about all of us. Whether he wants to admit it or not, he was talking about all of us. It's not Coca La Rock's fault that there was no business for Coca La Rock to make brand deals, to have a manager, to go outside of the Bronx, to make more than 250 a show. It's not his fault. It's not DJ Hollywood's fault that he was a pioneer. History proves in every business, pioneers don't eat. It's the people that come second that eat. You and I talked about this, and I'm going to say it here because I think it's important. You and I are the first generation of the second generation of hip hop.
Correct.
No one's been where we are. No one. My hope is that Academic, as the first generation of the third or fourth generation, is able to eat and have longevity that none of our counterparts before us had. The first generation carried the culture from 1980 to 1990. The second generation carried it from 1991 to today. And they continue to. Now, there have been other generations that have changed the music, changed the landscape. But if you look at the second generation and where we are today as a collective, we are very involved in media, press, television, film, docuseries, documentary, publishing, production, curation, execution, festivals, theaters, venues. There's never been this funnel that runs as deep as we run. So we have to protect those guys. We have to. It's our responsibility. So I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. I damn sure didn't want to repeat what was already said. I just simply wanted to accent what was being shared and only share it from my perspective. Which if you think I'm dusty, bro, come grab one of my 17 watches out my closet. You think I'm dusty, come grab my Audi A8W12, which is only one of 10 in the world, B. Come drive my shit. Come see my house on the water. So, and it's not about bragging. It's about the fact that because of who we are, of who Sean Prez is, of who I am, of who Sean Combs is, of who Marc Ecko is, of who the second generation is, that you can't talk about them in front of us because you've never been where they've been.
Right.
And I
So
love the
well
kid.
said.
And I love the kid, man. And I think he's an amazing talent. And I think he has a great audience. I just think that he stepped over a line that he needed to be chin checked on.
No, very well said. Very well said. So, Serch, this has been an amazing conversation. You've enlightened me on things I didn't even know about, to keep it 100, things I forgot about. You've been entrenched and engulfed in so much of this hip hop thing for the better part of your life. Where is it that you want to see hip hop go? We got 50 years of hip hop right now. If you could have it your way, if you could look into a crystal ball, what would you like to see this culture become as it continues to grow? Like I mentioned at the top of this interview, it's the #1 stream music, this #1 stream genre of music in the world right now. Where would you like to see it go before you close your eyes and leave this place?
So the one thing that you said that is accurate is it's the #1 genre in the world. There's an asterisk to that statement, which is this is also the first time in the recorded history of hip hop that sales have declined. It has been a straight shot for 50 years until this year. It's down. If you look at the research and you talk to the audience, the overwhelming reason it's down is because the largest block of listeners are leaving the music. And the largest block of people leaving the music are females. And the #1 reason females are not listening to hip hop is because they're tired of being called out their name. They're tired of being marginalized. They're tired of being treated like meat. They're tired of being called something that there's just the minority is. So what I would like to hopefully see, my hope is that we can get on a trajectory where we can keep making great music. We can keep making impactful music, but we make music that includes everyone. We are falling into a trap because I forget what the number is. I think there's 60,000 songs submitted to Spotify a week now. 60,000 songs. And most of that is from artists who have the ability to make music in their home.
Correct.
So they can put out 100 songs a month, 200 songs, because all they do is they hit a beat or they buy a beat from Beat Club or Sound Beat, whatever, and they make a track. And they have no idea the impact that track is going to have. And then the track has traction and you're talking about blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you're off to the races and you think that's all you're going to talk about. So that's one. My hope is that we can include and make people feel that they are not being marginalized by the music, because that's what's being said, not what I think. It's being said by the audience. That's one. Two, where I think the growth can come is from our artists who still make great music. And shout out to DJ Epps and New Music Money on Instagram, who plays music from Hakeem Green and Channel Live, who plays music from Talib Kweli, but also plays, Dan G and Cap G and new artists and old artists. So I hope that stations like Rock the Bells and Urban Mainstream will start to include some of this other music, because the only way for Spotify to grow and Apple to grow is for dudes like us to want to go and pick out playlists of music that we love, right? Nielsen said that at 30 years old, 98% of people no longer listen for new music. The only new music they listen to is artists that they fell in love with up until 30. Now, I'm the anomaly. I'm still listening to new music. I'm discovering new talent all the time. I love new artists. I love to find new voices. But the majority of the audience is stuck on their vibe and stuck in their ways, and think Biggie is the greatest rapper of all time, which we all know is cap. So the
I'm acting like I didn't hear that. Like, I'm literally acting like I didn't hear that. But proceed, Mr. Barron.
You did a great job.
As you can see, I'm trying to keep my composure and stay in character.
Yeah, it was the gas face giving, B. That was straight, not a smile or a smirk. You appeared to monkey wrench to Corcoran's clockwork. You just killed it. When I said that, you were like, anyway. So we sit in a silo a lot of times as people who love music. We sit in a silo where, like, oh, and this is a perfect sequitur. Like, I started making music again, not because I didn't write rhymes every day. I just didn't feel it. And when my father died 2 years ago, I just kind of caught the bug and started making music. And I played you something, and I was really proud of it. And I'll put it on here on that big ass speaker that looks like a surfboard, so we can bump it out on the way out of here. But the thing is that the dudes like us, bro, and the women like us, and the Misa Hiltons of the world, and the Moni Loves of the world, and the people that are still active in this, we have to find our heroes again, because that's what's going to elevate the music again. We can't be the 18-year-olds that are cheering for Biggie and cheering for Nas and cheering for Jay-Z. We got to be the 55-year-olds that are cheering for Polo G, or cheering for Hakim Green on his second come around, or KRS, or MC Serch, or Bobby J from Rockaway, or OT the Real, or Bodie James. We got to be excited about that shit. And if we're not, the numbers are going to keep going this way, because young people are listening to alt rock again. They're listening to rock and roll again. They're listening to reggae again. You see the numbers, they're creeping up. And that's because the music and the message is directly talking to that audience. We've stopped connecting. So while we're still the biggest genre in the world, the numbers, it's the first time, bro, that the numbers are going down. It's like Golden State when they went 73-9 one year, right?
Yeah.
And they asked Coach Kerr, they said, "Hey, Coach, what happens after this?" He goes, "Next year, we're going to lose more games, but we'll probably win a championship." That's where we are, bro. We're not going to go 73-9 this year. We're going to go 52-20 or 52-30, but we're still going to win a chip because the numbers are there. But it doesn't mean we're growing. If we stop growing, we stop glowing. And if we stop glowing, we start going.
Serch,
you keep talking. I'm going to put on a speaker real quick. You keep talking.
Close us out with some new classics.
I'm gonna just throw the speaker on. Anyway.
Nah, this has been a dope conversation, man.
Nah, I mean, look, this is what people don't understand. This is what we do.
Exactly.
This is what you and I do anyway.
I got to try to keep it professional, but this is what we do here regardless.
This is what we do all the time. We do this all the time. Hold on, I gotta blast this off. Miles, I'm gonna play some music. I had to let my
This
son
is when you know you're talking to family.
He gets upset.
Nah, this is when you know you're talking to family. Like literally, this is how we're gonna close the episode out.
Oh, this is a banger. All right, so this is some new music. Y'all hearing it first. I actually just mixed this yesterday. So I love this record. This is actually my favorite record I ever recorded. It's true.
MC Serch. Yo, can we get a performance, man? Like you gotta, if you're gonna do it right.
You want me?
Yes.
It's just a vibe, right? It's 3 a.m. and we still outside, right? We gon' play till the sun come up, cause it's a vibe, right? You got yours and I got mine, and it's just a vibe, right? It's just a vibe, right? Feeling so good, it's understood when we step in the club, it's all love. Bottles being brought in and it's fucking like the 4th of July. Cause it's just a vibe, we outside, happy just to be alive, enjoying every moment of this life, it's on tonight. See a whole lot of ladies looking fine as frog head. You right there, Benaki, come here. You don't speak English, I don't speak Spanish, I only know that hood shit. Check this shit like y'all like that song. Quiero mucho, yeah, that's what I got. What do you know? Come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. Let's just have fun. It's 4 a.m. and the night is still young. I taste your tongue and you taste mine. I taste good, but you taste fine. And we all laughing, we all vibing, we all grinding, cause that's what's happening, and it's just a vibe, right? It's 5 a.m. and we still outside, right? We gonna play till the sun come up, cause it's a vibe, right? Yeah, it's a vibe, right? We gon' keep the night going, keep the drinks flowing, smoke your trees and be free, whatever, keep the night flowing. I'ma keep it two-step going, whatever they play, I'ma be knowing. Chain smoke with the lips, I'm J. Cole, the people call me the calorie, it's just a vibe to me. Blue face to gas face, Jimmy boy, the two chin, blended on alcohol, anything from T-Pain, it's all love, no pulling a ratchet. Sitting here beautiful, bougie and ratchet, hair and hair lovely, big girls, you lovely. You can be country or country, it don't matter to me, just what matter to me is that I'm vibing. Alright, let's watch the sunrise, can swim my blue eyes over the blue sea, rising like outside, cause it's just a vibe, right? It's 6 a.m. and we still outside, right? We just played till the sun came up, cause it's a vibe, right? Let's go eat yo, it's my treat yo, cause it's just a vibe, right? Yeah, it's just a vibe, right? Two-step, let's go now. We alive and we are here. From Florida to Chicago to Detroit to Orlando. Let's go. New York, hometown, Far Rock, 53rd state. Yeah, it's just a vibe now. It's just a vibe now. Now.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. MC.
That's how we end it off.
What's up, guys? Thanks for sticking with me to the end of the video. Truly appreciate you. If you like anything you heard here today, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you know anybody that can benefit from this message, feel free to share. Peace and love. Make every move a power move. And I'll catch you all on the next video.